All right, so continuing on here, and this is the 2017 APCSA ArrayList tree response. Gonna go ahead and jump in, and without further ado, let's go ahead and set this up. All right, and okay, all right, so this question involves identifying and processing the digits of a non-negative number, integer. The declaration of the digit class is shown below. You'll write the constructor and one method for the digits class. Okay. All right, they were pretty straightforward. Got to write the constructor, got to write this method. Let's go ahead and write those headers here, public digits and num. And let's go ahead and write the method here. Okay, so public boolean is strictly increasing. Got it, okay. And I can tell that this returns a boolean, so I can just go ahead and be like boolean result and set it as false in the beginning, but I may need to change that. It may not make sense for it to be false for right now. But for right now, I like to go ahead and just give them default values of like these variables, default values of like 0, 0.0, or false. Or no. No will also work. Alright, okay. Well, depending on the situation, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So, okay, so I've got this digits list, okay, and I've got this number, and I've got this method. So it says, write the constructor for the digits class. The constructor initializes and fills digits list with digits from the non-negative integer number. Okay, the elements in digits list must be integer objects representing single digits and appear in the same order as the digits in num. Each of the following examples shows the declaration of a digits object and the contents of the digit list as initialized by the constructor. That's a lot of information. Let me focus on the picture, because if I go by this, like there's just a lot of words here. But here I see that this is the digits list, right? And it's got 1, 5, 7, 0, 4. And sorry, this is the number, and then in the digits list, within that array list, there's a 1, and then there's a 5, and then there's a 7, and then there's a 0, and then there's a 4. Okay, so basically we're taking this, trying to break it up into individual numbers, and put each individual number in the array list. Same thing here, the number is 0, we go ahead and put that in there. Okay, so, right. I've seen a programming challenge in CS Awesome that's pretty similar to this, so essentially what I want to do here is, well, the first thing I want to do here is I want to figure out how I can isolate each individual digit. Well, I know that I've got two operators. I've got the division operator, and I've also got the mod operator. And the mod, if I'm careful about what I mod this number with, let me see here. Right, okay. I know that if I use mod, I can go ahead and I can figure out the last number, and if I use division, I can figure out what the remaining numbers are. So I guess essentially, and I need to keep doing that until I get to the end of the number. And I know when I've gotten to the end of the number that's a good question. I'm not really sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this while loop for right now, because I don't know how many times I'm going to loop, right? The number could be like a million numbers long. It could be 10 numbers long. It could be 3 numbers. It could be 1 number, right? So I'm not really sure what I want to write here for this, like the test expression, but I do know that I want to keep using mod and division. Right. Well, well, if we divide by 10, we can figure out any number by 10. We can always figure out what the last digit is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say something like, well, first off, I'm going to create a copy of this number, because, well, actually, I guess I don't need to. I don't need to create a copy of this number. Wait, should I? Nah, I think it's a good practice. Let's just go ahead and make a copy of this number, right? I don't think I need to do this, but there's one point penalty on the AP exam if you destroy persistent data. Now this is going to be a copy of whatever number gets put in. When we're working with primitive data types, the argument to this constructor, it's going to make a copy of whatever number that is. So if it's 7, it's going to make a copy of the 7. If it's 8, it's going to make a copy of the 8. But if we're working with an object, like a string is an object, but strings are immutable, so there might be an exception to the rule. When we're working with an object, it will actually like change the object, if my understanding is correct. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to take whatever my result is, right? And, or let's call it copy. That makes it better. That's a better name. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say copy, and I'm going to divide it by, well, no, I'm going to mod it by 10, and that is going to give me my last digit. So my last digit is copy divided by, or mod 10. And then my remaining digits are copy divided by 10. So for instance, right, if we divided this number by 10, we'd end up getting 1,570. Woohoo! So that would be our remaining digits, thankfully. And if we modded this by 10, we'd end up getting 4, which is our last digit. So we're really just keeping on repeating that process. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set copy to be the same as the remaining digits. Could have done that all in one line of code, but I just want you to see what my thinking process is as I'm going through this here. So now, how do I know when I should stop looping? Well, I guess, okay, so let's, in order to figure out what I could write in my while loop, I guess what I could do is look at this as an example, right? So once I get to 1, right, I would do 1 mod 10, or I'd do 1 mod 10, yeah, and that would give me 1, so that would give me my last digit. And then I would go ahead and, well, then when I would divide by 10, I would end up getting 0. So, and once I get to 0, then I know that I don't need to keep doing this process anymore. So I'd say as long as copy is, let's say, not equal to 0, is it always going to be a positive integer? Let me see. Yeah, it's a non-negative integer number. Okay, yeah. So long as it's not equal to 0, we're going to keep this process going. Okay, now I've got my digits, right? I have my process to get each of my digits, but now I have to actually add them to the list. The problem is that if I say, what's the name of this array list that we're working with? It's called, digits list. That's the array list that I'm editing. The problem is that if I say just digits list dot add and then say last digit, what it's going to do is it's going to, essentially what's going to happen is that it's going to start from the back, right? Because 4 is going to be the first last digit we get, and it's going to add 4 to the list, and then it's going to add 0 to the list, and then 5, and then 7, and then 1, so that's going to be a problem. So what I can do is I can say add last digit, whatever digit I'm working with, to the 0th index. Now, I don't remember if I've used this add method properly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do Java, quick reference card. Right, okay, and this is what you would get on the AP exam, so you can use it to make sure that you're calling your methods correctly, right? So index 0, yep, so basically this is going to make sure that whatever new digit I come up with, I'm going to add it to the front of the list, And I think that should solve my problem, because that means that, okay, 4 would be at the front, but then 0 would be at the front, and then 7 would be at the front, and then 5, then 1. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so I think that is it. I isolated my last digit, I added it to the list, I figured out what the remaining digits are by dividing by 10, and then I made sure that I updated copy. Actually, let's go ahead, and now that I know what's happening in this code, let's go ahead and just shorten it. In fact, I could shorten it even more by saying, yep, those 3 different code segments that I just showed you, and just changed, 10 seconds ago, those are all equivalent, but this is going to be the shortest, easiest to read. Okay, Now I've got to work on the next one, and the next one is called is strictly increasing. Okay, so it says write the digits method. Oh, I think I know how this is gonna go. I imagine, before I even read this, based off of some algorithms that I've seen, and I think it's going to ask us to look at all the numbers and make sure that the numbers are only getting higher. As we start at the beginning, all the way at the end, each number is bigger than the previous number. Okay, let's find out. This method returns true if the elements of the digits list appear in strictly increasing order. Otherwise, it returns false. A list is considered strictly increasing if each element after the first is greater than, but not equal to, the preceding element. Okay, so here, 1, 3, 5, 6, that works, because 3 is greater than 1, 5 is greater than 3, 6 is greater than 5. Good. 7, this is the only one, so it's great by default. Okay, this one, no, because 3 is not greater than 3. This one, no, because 3 is not greater than 5. This one, no, because it's just all, it's all in backwards order, right? 5 is not greater than 6, 3 is not greater than 5, 1 is not greater than 3, 0 is not greater than 1, so just forget about it. Alright, so what we need to do is we need to go ahead and write a loop that starts from the beginning of the digits list all the way to the end. Now, can I use an enhanced for loop? As much as possible, I like to use the enhanced for loops, because if you can get the enhanced for loop to work, it is going to make your life a lot easier, because then we don't have to worry so much about or worry at all about the bounds errors, right? So a digits list, in order to use a for each loop, I need to know what's the data type stored in the array list. Well, in the array list, the data type that is stored is an integer object, right? Okay, it's an integer. I can't just say int, because array lists, they store integers. So I'm going to say integer, and I'm going to call it current. My current integer in the digits list array list. Digits list? Oh, it's digit list. Did I say digits list? Digit list. Now, if you made that mistake on the AP exam, they would give you that point. They wouldn't take points off for that, because there's no, like, we know that if you say digits list, they're talking about this one. Okay, so, well, it would give you an error in Java, but, like, just know that it's just spelling error, really. Okay, so now we're looking at each integer, right? And essentially what we want to do is we want to compare it to the one behind it, but, You know what? I think could I do this with a for each loop? Well, I could do this with a for each loop, but I would need to keep track of the, okay. Alright, there's one way that I can solve this. Here in this case, actually, it would probably be easier if I use this, if I used a for, like a normal for loop, because I kind of want to start looking from the second number rather than the first number. But if I use a for each loop, then I have to start with the first number, but it's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it integer previous. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that previous integer, and what this is going to do is it's going to keep track of the number that came before, so I can do my comparison. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to a value. And, well, I could set it as, could I set it as 0? Let me think about it. Could I set it as 0 or -1? Well, let's see. Well, all of my digits are going to be positive. So yes, I actually could go ahead and set this as -1. So that makes sense, okay? So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, or if I actually want to like use the like integer, I could also say new integer and then -1. There we go. So I created an integer object and I set it as -1, or this would also work. What will happen is that Java will automatically cast this, I think it's called auto boxing, and what it'll do is it'll take this primitive data type and turn it into its wrapper class, the integer class. So basically you don't have to worry about like using the constructor for integer. Java will automatically take this data and turn it into a integer object. So, with that said, if I remember correctly at least, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll just be on the safe side and I'll use the constructor, just in case I accidentally mess something up, but I think it does automatically do the conversion. Alright, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, if current is greater than previous, there's no problem. I could say do nothing. This is not the best way to do it, which I'll show you how we fix this. If the current is greater than previous, do nothing, there's no problem. Else, if the current is not greater than the previous, then we're going to say result gets false. Now, this is one of those tricky things here. We really got to think carefully about this. I'm actually going to go ahead and, based off of the way that I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and set this to be initially a value of true. I'm going to assume, instead of saying return false, I should say return result. There we go, because our result may not necessarily be false. I'm going to assume that everything is good. Everything is nice, dandy, everything is fine, right? But as soon as I find one that violates that principle, then I'm done. Violates the strictly increasing principle, I don't want to go any further. I don't want to even bother looking at the rest of the numbers. In fact, if I keep looking at the rest of the numbers, I'm probably going to make a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and just say result gets false. In fact, I can actually just say return false. So that way it's going to stop. It's not even going to look anymore. But if I get through all of these numbers and I don't get to the statement, that this means, yeah, we can go ahead and return true. Now, I'm going to change this, and what I'm going to say is, because it's not the best programming practice to do it this way, I'm going to say if the current is less than or equal to the previous, then I'm just going to go ahead and return false. What I've written right here is equivalent to what I had before, but obviously it's shorter, right? So if my current integer is less than or equal to my previous number, I'm going to go ahead and return false, because this digit list is not strictly increasing. Okay, so that seems like it's in pretty good shape. Now, one thing that I will say is that, what's another thing I'll say? There's different ways to do this problem, right? Another thing that I could have done is, there's a lot of different ways. Another different way that I could have done this problem is I could have said I could have used a while loop. I could have used, let's do the first one that I said. I could have used a normal for loop and said index equals 0 while index is less than, digit list dot size. You should always be thinking to yourself, is this a method that I can use for the object that I'm working with? Size, digit list is an array list. Yes, I can use size. Okay. So, right, I'm going through and I've got each of my indices here, right? And what I can do is now I don't even need this previous one. I can actually start off at index 1 instead of index 0. And I can just do this. I can just say, if here, let's go ahead and create two variables. Current number, which is going to be digit list dot get index, and then we can say previous, which is digit list dot get index -1. And this will never give me an out of bounds error because I'm starting off at index 1. So when this first loops, to get the previous one, it'll say, it'll get the value at index 0. Okay, so now, again, I'm going to do something pretty similar to what I just did before. Basically, I can copy and paste this and be like, okay, if the current is less than the previous, then I can go ahead and return false here. Great. Okay, so that's one way to do it. You could also do this with a while loop. So let's go ahead and copy this. And what would be the while loop way to do this? So if I did this with a while loop, I would need to go ahead and I would need to keep track of the index that I'm working with, right? So I'd have to say int index equals 1. That would be the index that I'm starting off as. And I'd have to say while the index is less than digit list dot size. Okay. Basically, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go ahead and basically I can take the same exact code that I have, pretty much. I'm going to copy it and paste it in here, right? I can say, I can grab the grab the element at index, and then I can grab the element at index -1. And then I have to manually go through and make sure that I increase my index. I could say index plus plus. I could also say index plus equals 1. And I could also say index gets index plus 1. These are all equivalent lines of code. Okay, so yes, so I'd have to make sure that I increase my index. Yeah, and then I would have to return my result. So yeah, this is a while loop. It keeps looping until we get to the end of the digit list, the last index that would work for a digit list of the given size. I would grab the current integer at that index and grab the previous integer at that index, and oh, I just made a mistake, right? Well, it's not a mistake, right? So what I mentioned before here is that like Java will automatically convert the integer object to its equivalent primitive int data type. It will automatically convert the integer object. It'll convert from integer to int and int to integer automatically. So I don't need to worry about the conversion. But if that bothered me, no, actually I think this works. This should work here because I'm just not sure if the less than or equal to will work for an integer. Okay, I think this is it. Could have some errors in here, but this is the general idea, like behind what the algorithm should look like. That's it.